Are anglers better now than 20, 30, or 40 years ago? I don't know that I've seen a time when professional bass anglers were not unbelievable. Now, there's been times in certain trails to where you have a portion of the field that maybe wasn't as good as another portion of the field. I think that's kind of obvious when you have a little bit bigger fields. But when you're talking about 50, 80, 100 man fields, it's as good now as I've ever seen. I've been fishing professionally full time since 2000. So for 25 years, I've been making my living fishing against other grown men that are unbelievable bass anglers. I'm talking anglers from all over the world, anglers that are willing to put everything they got, put it up on the table and say go. So, over the course of my career, I don't know that I've ever seen anybody have the run that Kevin Van Dam had from the time I started. His run started before that. He was dominating in the 90s, but from the 2000s all the way through the 2020 time frame, 2016, 2015, somewhere in there, for that 15 year, that was one of the most dominant performances I've ever seen in professional bass fishing. But as a whole, in the early 2000s, the invitational trails, the open trails, the Bassmaster Tour, a little bit bigger fields, 150 boats or more. So you get that many boats, you're gonna have 10, 20, 30 debatable guys that are not at the level that the rest of the field is at. And when I started, I feel like in 2000 to 2003, my skills, my fishing went up exponentially. I started touring the country, traveling with different guys from around the country, started meeting people from different parts of the country, learning techniques that are really good in Florida, some things that are good in Alabama, some things that are good in New York, some things that are good in Texas, some things that are good in California, meshing all of that into what I already knew that was good in the Virginia, North Carolina area, meshing that all together, it just absolutely makes your learning curve take off. So the fields now, in my opinion, 2025 are as strong on the Bassmaster Elite Series and the BPT than I think we've ever seen. The amount of accomplishments that these anglers have is unbelievable. And there are a number of anglers with Bassmaster Classic wins and more that are getting eliminated from those fields because they're not staying up with the times. They're not competing at the level that they should be competing at in order to stay on those tours. So it's pretty wild when you look at it and you look at some of the names that are bowing out or going away because they're not catching them as good as they need to be to stay on that tour. Pretty unbelievable, pretty remarkable. You got to look at, it's fun to pick out individuals and talk about how good they are, but I'm talking about the strength of the entire field. So this year in the Bassmaster Elite Series, the list of anglers that are not coming back, so the list of quote unquote called anglers from the field, there's 13 anglers on that list. You've got the likes of Ben Milliken. Now we'll get into this in a minute, but his short window is only 2 years of time that he had to go on. But you got guys with longer careers that had a career average in the 50s. So their career average for the Elite Series was in the 50s, low 50s, low to mid 50s, that are getting eliminated from the Elite Series field. That tells you how good you need to be in order to stay on the Elite Series. Now we can get into exactly how you stay on the Elite Series. The top 70 as of right now in 2025, the top 70 in AOY are safe. Below that, you get eliminated by your career average, and you get one drop year for every 5 years that you're on the Elite Series, and your rookies get a a bonus year, a spare year. So the rookies don't count, but even though all the rookies are pretty much up at the top of the field each year, those second year guys, you got to be careful, because if you have one bad year and you only have 2 or 3 years, it can really drop down your career average and really hurt you in that. And that's exactly what happened to Milliken. I mean, nobody can dispute the fact that he's an unbelievable angler. Had a series of bad events this year, and was not able to kind of have a good year. You have 2 or 3 bad tournaments on the Elite Series, man, you're going to be way down there in the points. He ended up 74th in the points. He had a couple just absolute terrible tournaments. It can happen. A lot of that is just one bad day. Have a decent day and then one really bad day, and it drops you down. You're in 70th, 80th. Next thing you know, you have 2 or 3 of those tournaments during the course of a year. You're going to be in 70 something in the points. It is so competitive to stay at the top of that list. Hallelujah, I made the Bassmaster Classic this year again. Absolutely ecstatic to do that. I have not made that in a few years. It is getting to be really, really hard. And everybody wants to blame the scopers and this and that, dude. I'm telling you, the younger anglers are as well-rounded as I've ever seen. The previous couple years of rookies on the Elite Series have been phenomenal. You're talking about guys that went through a gauntlet of 9 events in order to qualify for the tournament, the Elite Series. They went through that gauntlet of 9, so they're tried and true. You got your Logan Parkses, you got your Trey McKinney's, JT Tompkins, you got your all those guys. That younger class, I'm gonna group them all together because skill-wise they're phenomenal. I mean, they can catch them wherever we go, from the Sabine River to the St. Lawrence River, and everywhere in between. It's been fun. I feel like it's brought out the best in me to be able to bring everything I had. I mean, it took everything I had this year to squeak in. I needed help from Emil Wagner. He's another one of those guys, just a phenomenal fisherman that, I mean, he cruised into the Classic, just rolled right on into the Classic. And Tucker Smith, talking about the Live Scope deal, Tucker Smith's one of the guys that rooms with Emil. Tucker just won that Ultimate Angler Championship. You had the best of the best in that tournament. You had guys from the BPT. You had the best local anglers. You had a bunch of elite guys in there. And Tucker Smith basically blew it out. You had a local guy that finished second, Jacob Wall. Good stick, really good stick. We're going to see a lot more from him over the next handful of years for sure. But then, Randy Howe third. You got guys that on the Elite Series, a lot of guys that were right there. Lee Livesey, 5th place. And that's a stacked field. The Jacob Wheelers, those guys didn't end up at the top of that tournament. Maybe just not the right time of year for them. They tried some stuff, maybe didn't work out for them. Either way, Wheeler's unbelievable. I'm glad I don't have to fish with him, to be quite honest with you, because Wheeler can catch him pretty much anywhere, anytime. He has just been so dominant at the BPT. He just gets zeroed in, and when he gets locked in, man, he is really, really tough to beat. He's been like that since he was a teenager, kind of like Tucker Smith. Tucker Smith been dominant since he was a teenager, coming out and just trouncing everybody from the high school tournaments, college. Him and Logan Parks went out there and won that U.S. Open $1 million tournament on Table Rock a few years back. So it's just really cool to see the level of competition just keep getting better and better. And, Tucker Smith went out there on that Ultimate Angler Championship, beat all those guys, no live scope, basically did it old school fashion. The 2 spots that basically brought it out for him, that won it for him, were spots that he found in the official practice. So you can't really claim local knowledge or any of that kind of stuff because he's been living there for the last few years. He knew the lake very well, but he found places he had never fished before, and that's what came through. That tells you he's got it. Like, he has that it factor, with scope, without scope, whatever. There's a lot of those younger guys that absolutely have it, and I think that it's going to be a lot of fun to watch them for a long time. So I'm not gonna fish forever. I'm having a good time. I'm going to keep doing it for as long as I can foresee, but when I'm done, I'm 47 right now in 2025. Trey McKinney's 20 years old. He's going to turn 21 here soon. That's unbelievable to think that he's already accomplished what he's accomplished. Finished second in Angler of the Year twice. Won 2 Elite Series events already. And he's only 20 years old. He's got at least another 20 to 30 years of bringing the heat on the whole field. And yeah, people love everybody that does well. I mean, we'll just move past McKinney. Everybody that does well and is dominant and is doing things that people don't think they should be doing, they're going to try to tear them down. That's just society, unfortunately. Some people make it easier than others to kind of like claim that and to see that. Some people are more likable than others. Not put any names, but sometimes when people don't help themselves with being on camera and doing things that people don't like because they're not rooting. They're not rooting for you. It's like the Patrick Mahomes syndrome. It's what I call it. Patrick Mahomes is like one of the nicest dudes. Nobody ever talks crap about him. Will be one of the top 3 quarterbacks, top 3 football players ever to play a game of football. Personally, I can't root for him. I like him as a person. I think he's cool. I can't root for him. Do I hate him? No, I don't hate him. But I just can't root for him. So when people look at professional bass anglers that are doing really well, they're going to, there's a percentage of people that just are naturally going to quote unquote hate on them or not root for them. And sometimes not rooting turns into hate because you just don't want that person to keep doing well, but they're that freaking good. They're just going to keep doing well. So it's really kind of wild to see the competition level that we have in 2025 on really on both tours. And now with the NPFL, you've got some of the legends that are kind of landing there. And you've got like a mix of younger guys. You got the Drews over there and Patrick Walters over there doing well, Kyle Welcher, Hackney, and all the Swindle's having a good time over there. With missile weights, I don't have enough time to fish everything, but it looks like a lot of fun. But I just focus on the Elite Series and do that. But man, competition level in 2025, I think it's as good as it's ever been, like top to bottom in the entire field. You have to be very, very consistent throughout the whole year. I would say, when I started early in my career on the Elite Series, first handful of years on the Elite Series, you could have a very mediocre day 1 and then have a pretty good day 2, and you could make the day 3 cut. Now, depending on the body of water, obviously, but now that field is so stacked that what I feel like used to be in 60th place is now in 80th place. And some of that is a little bit of the scope, but the scope it affects everybody, not just the young guys. It affects everybody. It makes anglers more efficient. It makes anglers not miss. So we'll see what happens with a mix of with and without the scope. I think that's going to be interesting and fun to fish with and fun to see how guys react and see how the fans react. I think that's going to be it's going to be fun. I mean, I'm so old at this point, been fishing for so long. Any kind of little plot twist, as long as we don't compromise the game that we're, the integrity of bass fishing, then I'm in. And as long as it's equal for everybody, I'm into it. And I think that is what we're going to see with the mix. If we stayed with the scope, that'd be cool with me because I've really gotten into it. I've really started to really enjoy it. As you can see, I've got the giant screen on the front of my boat. I'm going to have a giant screen on the front of my boat again because yes, I have to have readers when I look at pieces of paper with small print on it. So when I'm looking at a 10-inch screen, I can't see very much, and I need that big screen. That big screen helps me see it with my eyes, but it also extrapolates everything to where I can see details. Even though that I've got to have readers, I can see that stuff. So long story short, I embrace the technology. I think it's fun. It's a big part of it. When side imaging came out, I jumped right on it. I thought it was fascinating. When the GPS topography maps came out, I jumped on it. You have to learn it and incorporate it into your fishing or you're going to get left behind. Because, dude, that was 20 years ago, basically, when the topography maps started to get dialed in. All those companies with the C maps and Navionics and Lake Master, they all started dialing those maps in. So all these offshore places that it took me, hours and hours and hours to find, now all of a sudden you can find the little ditch just by looking at your topo map, or you can find that little channel swing that you were looking for with your graph and side imaging. Now you can find it on your topo map. So that was one of the biggest changes in offshore fishing that made anglers better. And I had to jump on it and embrace it, because that was 20 years ago. If I didn't embrace it then, I wouldn't have understood how to use it for the next 15 years. I feel like LiveScope's the same way. Depending on what trail you fish, it's probably not going to go away. So you need to be proficient with it. That's the way I look at it. Even the BFLs, they're going to keep it around, even though it's got this very awkward, weird 3-hour window that I don't quite understand how they're going to enforce. But, they're going to keep it around. That's the bottom line. Certain tournament trails are probably going to either eliminate it or restrict it somehow. But I don't think it's going to completely go away from professional tournament fishing and tournament fishing in general. Everybody can debate whether it should or not, but it's around now. So, you've got to embrace all of the new technology, because there's going to be more and more things like, apps that are coming out that are going to be very helpful, that are going to tell you information that if you understand how to process it and how to use it, you're going to be on the forefront of that, because then that will become the new norm. We don't even know what AI is going to do for professional bass fishing and how that's going to be incorporated to the technology on these boats. But that's even, we'll find that here in a few years, probably what's going to happen there. But talent-wise, top to bottom, as good as it's ever been on both trails. I can just tell you that, because we got some really, really good anglers that are searching for a home, unfortunately. And luckily, with the NPFL gaining a lot of momentum, it sounds like some of these guys have places to go, and I think that's awesome. So I'll be tuning into the NPFL just like I was doing this year, just like I tune into all the other tournaments, the Opens and the EQs and everything else that I'm not into. So tournament top to bottom, if you have any difference, I'm not saying that. Now let's talk about one more thing. Maybe I'd doing a whole nother video on this, but the top 20 versus the top 20 years ago. Now that's a conversation we might have to have, because now we can really start splitting hairs on who's better, how are they better. It's just like LeBron and Michael Jordan. People from today say LeBron's the GOAT. People that ever watched or played against Michael Jordan, they have something different to say. So, different eras, hard to compare, but that might be another conversation for another day. If you have any input on what I was talking about and how the tournament level competition is today versus 20 years ago, drop it down there. If not, we'll talk to you and see you around. Thanks for watching.